A lot of people watching this video will remember a very famous speech just before the Iraq War given by Colonel Tim Collins, where he said to the soldiers who were about to enter Iraq, "Tread carefully, because this is the land of Abraham, the site of the Garden of Eden, of very ancient and rich civilizations." And that's absolutely true. And Nahum is about a city in ancient Assyria that is now northern Iraq, a city that we all know because it's been on the news. It's near Mosul on the river Tigris. And Nahum the prophet prophesies against the city of Nineveh.
Well, the book of Nahum is one of the shortest of the prophetic books in the Old Testament. It belongs within what generally in the Christian tradition is referred to as the 12 minor prophets, the ones that come at the very end of the usual Christian arrangement of the Old Testament books.
Okay, so Nahum is the seventh of the minor prophets at the end of the Old Testament. Fairly short book, 3 chapters.
There's been quite a lot of interest in recent years as to what the relationship between these 12 shorter books might be. Within the Jewish tradition, within the Hebrew Bible, they're actually all put together as one book, the Book of the 12 as they're called. And that kind of gives a hint that maybe they in the later stages of their editing, in the later stages of their being brought together as a collection, they weren't intended to be read simply in isolation, the one from the other. The main central topic of the book of Nahum is with the coming fall, the coming destruction of the capital city of the Assyrian Empire, the city of Nineveh.
So perhaps the more famous reference to Nineveh comes up in the book of Jonah. So we all know about Nineveh as the place where Jonah sent to deliver this oracle. But actually Nahum is all about Nineveh as well, again about the destruction of Nineveh.
The Assyrian Empire was kind of dominant over the ancient Near East in the 8th century BC and on into the 7th century BC. During much of the later 8th century, the kingdoms of Israel and Judah were under Assyrian control. Assyria was always seen in negative terms as an oppressive and cruel and domineering power.
Cities are terribly important in the Old Testament as they are today, because a city can be an emblem, a symbol of an entire culture, a history, a people. I mean, think of the importance of the skyline of New York and the Statue of Liberty, the first thing that new settlers see as they arrive in the new land, liberty, freedom. And think of the power of the Twin Towers and that image, and other cities around the world. So Britain would be the Houses of Parliament or the Gherkin in the City of London. Well, Nineveh was a very powerful city, and in fact in the book of Jonah it tells us that it would take about 3 days just to walk around the circumference of Nineveh. And Nineveh is spared in the book of Jonah, but in the book of Nahum prophesies against this city that has become decadent.
Horsemen charging, flashing sword and glittering spear, piles of dead, heaps of corpses, dead bodies without end. They stumble over the bodies. Because of the countless debaucheries of the prostitutes, gracefully alluring, mistress of sorcery, who enslaves nations through her debaucheries.
Its inhabitants are ravaging and pillaging all the areas around. They're becoming materialistic and immoral, and the city will turn against itself and it will be destroyed by God's armies.
I am against you, says the Lord of hosts, and will lift up your skirts over your face, and I will let nations look on your nakedness and kingdoms on your shame. I hadn't realised it was going to run on to that bit, but the idea of lifting up your skirts over your face, it sounds like something you might do to a Scot. And it's the same kind of idea in that it shames the person.
Nineveh actually fell in the year 612 BCE. It's disputed whether the poems about the fall of Nineveh in the book of Nahum are dated shortly before that event, or whether they actually reflect on the event just after it's happened. But the main body of the material in the book seems to come from around that time. Nahum, as a name, it's actually connected with the Hebrew verb that means to comfort. And in some ways, it's a very appropriate name. This isn't distinctly spelt out anywhere in the book, but Nahum in many ways is the prophet who embodies the comfort that is expressed for the people of Judah and Jerusalem through the prophet in the announcement that the hated oppressor Assyria is about to be destroyed. Its power is about to come to an end. We know very little about Nahum himself. All we're told in the opening verse of the book is that he came from a place called Elkosh, which has been variously identified. There are 3 or 4 different locations which have been suggested for this place. We know virtually nothing about him.